welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Dude,
I almost want to sing the Welcome Back Cotter song. Welcome back.
Oh, dude, you're singing, man. That's you
Yeah,
never. Well, then you just said welcome back. That's all. We almost got some singing out of you.
Almost did.
Usually it's
It was
me
almost a rarity.
that carries a tune sometimes, but
Very
you
true.
guys can't see this because we don't do video. Maybe here in the near future, maybe we will. I'm gonna have a whole new setup that might make me feel better about doing it, but
Right.
It's like my shelves are all empty. I'm in the process of moving, and it looks really sad in here. Other than that, Almost Famous poster.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key. It ties the whole room together.
Yeah,
as they
that's
say.
a other movie.
But interesting because my shelves are overflowing because we're recording this towards the very, very end of November. It's November 29th, and it seems like every single movie seller outlet website, whatever, is having all of their sales all at once.
Jesus.
And I think it's appropriate to mention that because this is a movie podcast.
Yeah.
And we've talked about movie collecting a lot about this show, but I'm just saying, I don't know if it's because stores have been, open and closed, this year, but it seems like they all hit just at once.
Yeah.
Just for people out there who are collectors and are listening to this in the future, keep your eyeballs on these sales, late November, Criterion sale at Barnes & Noble. There's a Warner Archive sale going on right now. There's a Vinegar Syndrome sale. I think there was an Arrow sale at one point.
Well, some of them are about to end.
But they're all about to end. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you're listening to this at some point in the future and it's not quite November yet of whatever specific year you're listening to it, keep an eye out for those sales at this time
Warner
of year. And then there's
Archives.
the regular,
Yeah.
and then there's the regular Black Friday sales at
For
Amazon
newer
and
releases and stuff.
places like that. Which I'll be honest, this year, Steven, was kind of, I don't know if it was probably because of the pandemic, but they were very minimal, I found.
Yeah, well, not as many new releases, of course, but also anything in stores now is getting less and less. I mean, you've talked about how your Best Buys and stuff around you are just basically going down to very bare minimums.
Yeah, it's a very bare bones.
And mine around me are finally catching up to yours because I recently went to mine and it only has like a shelf, like a one long shelf, and that's it now. And
it started with my Walmarts, and when they started getting rid of their giant bargain bins, and then in their movie section started to shrink. And then Target started to go and do it. Then Best Buy started to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's spreading. The disease is spreading.
Yeah,
as
well,
they say.
it looks like our movie buying future is going to be online. It's just this.
And this was kind of a good test year run for that because I did predominantly a lot of my buying online.
Well,
this year.
let's just hope that people continue to buy and that it won't go away. It seems like certain studios are deciding to cash in on some physical media, like Paramount's continue to do like their new Paramount brand.
Yeah, I don't think I have said this on here, but over the last 2 months or so, Paramount Pictures woke up out of a years-long coma of just not giving a crap about their catalog titles. And then all of a sudden they just announced okay, we're doing a Paramount Presents line. We're gonna be releasing this and this and this and everything. It's gonna be numbered and they're gonna have new transfers. It's gonna be the definitive versions of these movies. And I'm like, it is 2020. Where have you guys been this whole time?
Right? We finally got Roman Holiday.
Finally got Roman Holiday. I mean, they put out a bunch of movies, and there's some head scratchers. And it's okay, I didn't know we needed, this type of movie getting a Paramount
primarily
Presents
it's
line.
been popular releases like Ghost got one.
Well, they just announced Elizabethtown, the Cameron Crowe movie that hadn't had a Blu-ray release at all up to this point, at least not here in the States.
I mean, I guess if you like that movie, then that's cool.
But it's they're also releasing Ghost and
Top Gun.
Airplane's getting got a new release. Flashdance got a release. Fatal Attraction got a release. Pretty in Pink. And then they would do the Golden Child with Eddie Murphy, and it's okay.
Well, you know what? I didn't think about this, but now we know why we didn't get Pretty in Pink on Criterion.
Yeah. I guess
because
that's
that was
true.
talked about for a while, and then it disappeared, and now we know why.
Well, we got the other Hughes movie in
We
The
got Breakfast Club, yeah.
Got a Criterion release, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, so it just Paramount kind of woke up out of their coma. But anywho,
Back to what we're supposed to be talking about.
back to what we're supposed to be talking about today. But I guess we're kind of going into we're actually going to be talking about coincidentally a studio that kind of no longer exists, and that is 20th Century Fox, which is now 20th Century Studios
Yeah.
because of the whole Fox-Disney merger. And I bring that up, it's because I'm holding in my hand the Blu-ray release of the movie that we're going to be talking about today. We're still in Noirvember, and we're still in film noir mode, at least I am. I'm trying to squeeze in as many film noirs towards the end of this month as possible. And today we're going to be talking about Laura, which is a film by Otto Preminger. Came out in 1944 and starring Gene Tierney, Dana Andrews, Clifton Webb, and a young Vincent Price is also in the movie as well.
If you look at a picture of Otto, because we're on a first name basis, me and Otto.
Nice.
He looks like a bald version of Alfred Hitchcock. Like it could be like his
Alfred Hitchcock was kind of bald, but yeah,
but like a balder version, like he's like Mr. Clean bald,
And what is interesting about Otto Preminger is that he also did some acting as well as directing. Like I specifically remember him in Stalag 17. He played like some SS officer of the prison camp. His name was Oberst von Scherbach. And I remember him being in it. I'm like, it's Otto Preminger. That's very interesting.
Well, he is from Austria.
Well, I think he's from...
He's from Austria.
Yeah, he's from Austria-Hungary.
Yeah.
Yeah, Austria-Hungary. And that's kind of... I'm just thinking of I'm thinking of the beginning of Dumb and Dumber, where the woman that Jim Carrey's talking to is from Austria, and he thinks that she's from Australia.
Yeah. Good day, mate.
Crazy.
Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Yeah.
Let's not.
What an opening to a movie. But yeah, I'm just thinking of that. But anyway, back to Laura. So this is actually, as I said in the previous episode, towards the end of it, is my favorite film noir of the classic film noir era, and probably my favorite film noir of all time. And the reason being is it's because it's so different, yet it exhibits a lot of the classic film noir characteristics.
Yeah, it's got a good, I would say like the first half of this movie is very much a film noir, but then halfway through it kind of switches.
It twists.
Yeah,
and I love it. And I find that to be so bold because it's like, first half is like a murder mystery, which is classic detective work, film noir, trying to figure stuff out. And then the second half is just completely different. And it's really, really fascinating. That's what I really appreciate about it. Also, I think the acting in it is fantastic. I think the character work is great. The cinematography, which it won an Oscar for, is amazing. The black and white cinematography. And this was my introduction to Gene Tierney, Dana Andrews.
See, both of them are great. And, well, first of all, Gina Tierney's a stunner.
I recently rewatched Leave Her to Heaven, which came out right after this, and it's got that Technicolor, and she's even more stunning in that film.
And it's solidified.
And she plays the complete opposite.
I was gonna
character
say
in
that movie made me like I was like kind of enamored by her because of her looks in Laura, but then I saw Leave Her to Heaven, and her acting, like how much of a change that really made me respect her more as an actor in that movie.
What's interesting is those films are both different in many sense. In many sense, like one's black and white, one's in color, and one is and they're just aesthetically so different. Yet they're both considered film noirs because of their just dark tones and themes.
And Leave Her to Heaven's dark, guys. That's one we got to talk about.
Heaven's amazing.
That's one we got to talk about later. Maybe next Noirvember.
Maybe next Noirvember. Just because I was actually thinking of that while watching this and just how different she is in this film and in that film.
But Dana Andrews is one of my favorite actors of this era. He's I mean, like I've seen him in he did a movie called Night of the Demon, and he's really good in that, where he's like this guy that like is investigating like these like demon worshippers. Like it's really weird for the time period. Yeah, but he's great in this movie. He just has this like he has some of that like old school acting where it's kind of like really fast talky, but he also has this kind of like wit to him that I don't think some of the actors of that time had. So a lot of them are wooden. He has this like kind of smarminess that I think works.
Yeah, he's in a few films from that era that I really like. I think I watched Fallen Angel, which he did the very next year, also directed by Otto Preminger. I watched that this Noirvember, of course, and then he was also in Best Years of Our Lives, which is amazing.
I love that movie. Yeah.
He's also, what's that other movie? I just had it. It's Where the Sidewalk Ends?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's another one with Gina Tierney in it too.
Yeah, with Gene. Yeah, Where the Sidewalk Ends. Yeah, he's also a detective in that movie as well, and I'm pretty sure that movie was also directed by Otto Preminger.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it was.
Yep.
Yes, it is. And it's also kind of a film noir-esque. And these are all within like the same 5 years.
I think he did like 5 movies with Gina Tierney.
Yes,
he did a lot of movies with her.
Probably right, but yeah, this was the first time I had discovered these actors. This was when I was getting into film noir for the first time. We're talking like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, like that range. So like early 2010s. And what is interesting is that I had no idea who these actors were, and then I ended up being like, this movie's amazing. So I've got to watch. I rewatched it at least 3 or 4 times now, and it just keeps staying just as good every single time I see it.
And of course, Vincent Price.
Vincent Price is in it.
Yes.
And I messed up the quote last week, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Because it's a quote that I misquoted it, but it still is kind of the same thing. But so let's dive. We're going to dive into the plot. So be wary of spoilers if you haven't seen Laura yet. The movie did come out in 1944, so you've got some time to watch it.
Yeah. But
it is available on Blu-ray and DVD, of course.
I'm sure it's pretty easy to rent if it's not on like a Criterion channel. Maybe it's like you said, it's out by 20th Century Fox. I also own the Masters of Cinema, the B.
Oh,
yeah, they have a Masters of Cinema put it out too, so I have that too. Both, of course, good transfers. Just I think some different special features. So if you're somebody that's into special features, you got 2 different versions there you can try to get. But all right, here we go. Let's do it.
So we're gonna dive into the plot right away. So we're introduced to our main character, played by Dana Andrews, is Detective Mark McPherson, and he's investigating a murder of a young woman named Laura Hunt, who is portrayed by Gene Tierney. And she was killed, in quotes, by like a shotgun blast.
To the face.
This
is why it was hard to identify.
Yeah, that's why she was initially hard to identify, but they believe it's her.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, it's her apartment. Nobody else is supposed to be there.
Yeah, the body was discovered at her apartment.
And she was wearing one of her outfits.
The body was wearing her clothes, all that kind of stuff. So he's going around and he's interviewing the people around Laura's life.
Yeah. And
the first one we get right off the bat is, quite honestly, one of the best scene-stealing characters I've ever seen in a movie. And it is newspaper columnist Waldo Lydecker, who was portrayed by Clifton Webb. And this guy has some of the best freaking lines I've ever seen. He's so egotistical. It's mind-boggling. Yeah. I was trying to figure out how to word his ego, and it's almost like he has a nihilistic superego where he just doesn't care about anything at all. Like, he just gives no shits whatsoever about anything except for Laura.
Well,
that's the one thing,
and that's the one thing he does care about. But by the end of this, I mean, you gotta think about it though. His because of his narcissism, right. Is it that he cares about her, or that he cares about the fact that she is one of his successes? Like, he championed her, so her success is his success.
Right. Not only that, but I think he almost sees her as like a possession, a controlled, a controlled being of her creation.
Yeah.
Almost like a Dr. Frankenstein type mentality.
Sure.
Where I created this, therefore it's mine.
Because to be honest, I get the impression of, and you get a little bit of subtext in that scene a little bit later where he meets McPherson meets him in the bath. Which there's a little bit of
that's the first.
It's like the first scene.
The first scene of the movie.
Yeah, and so there's a little bit of a homoeroticness going on here.
Well, yeah, they pointed that out in the special features.
Yeah,
and to me, it's almost like this guy doesn't like he's like, yeah, just walking on. So let's set the scene for people. So McPherson walks into this guy's apartment, this lavish apartment. It's got all kind of like statues and like little knick-knack things in cases and basically, like all kind of stuff, like expensive stuff.
Priceless
things. This guy's wealthy.
Yes.
This guy's wealthy. He's a successful newspaper columnist. He's well known, very popular.
Not many of them left.
I guess, yeah, newspapers in general. But so McPherson's walking around. He pulls something out of one of these cases, and then off screen we hear, don't touch that. It's expensive, and it's Lydecker. But not only is it Lydecker, he is sitting in a really like gorgeous looking bathtub in a room that doesn't quite look like a bathroom, Stephen. It looks like a living room with a bathtub in it. And he's got all kind of like furniture around, and just like the bath is huge, and he's sitting in it naked, of course, but he's also got like a tray over him where he can do his typing, and he's got like the table next to him, really lavish. But like, I don't know about you, Steven. If I'm meeting someone for the first time, I typically don't meet them while I'm sitting in a bathtub.
Well, that's the thing is he knew.
I don't have that type of ego.
He knew he was coming. Like he knew, so he didn't give a shit. He just he wanted this scenario to happen.
Not only that, but I just think he's like, there's like this guy. He lives by the beat of his own drum. He only does what he wants, and nothing is gonna like stop him from his doing what he's gonna do that day. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure this was part of his day. So he's like, hey, if somebody's gonna come and bother me during my day, they're gonna have to see me in the bathtub, because that's what I'm gonna be doing, and I don't care if they like it or not.
Yeah,
that seems to be that's the mentality I seem to get with him. And like you said, he has him hand him his robe, and we see him get out of the bathtub off
screen,
off screen, of course. It's the 40s, can't be showing any type of nudity, I guess. And basically, they have a back and forth type conversation where it's the usual police procedural stuff. And like I said, right away you get that you just understand who this Clifton, who Lydecker's character is. I was gonna say Clifton Webb's character, but Waldell's character is, and he looks down upon the McPherson character. And he keeps very matter of factly. He's not afraid to tell people what he thinks.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few times where McPherson calls Laura a dame, and he takes that as an insult, and he brings it up to him. He says, "Why do you keep calling her that? She's much more sophisticated. Like, she's not some dame."
Yeah, I was also thinking about like when McPherson pulls out that little baseball like ball game that he has, and like Lydecker sees is like, "Oh, did you confiscate that from a kindergarten or something?"
Yeah.
Or from like a school child? Because like he looks upon everyone as inferior to him.
Yeah.
Specifically McPherson, and even more so when we get to
Shelby,
who is Vincent Price's character, which we get to in pretty much the next scene.
Yeah, it's the next person McPherson goes to see.
Yeah, McPherson now wants to go interview the Laura's aunt, and while doing so, just so happens that Shelby is there, who portrayed by Vincent Price, just so happens to be there, and he starts questioning the aunt and Shelby together, specifically because it looks like the aunt and Shelby have some type of relationship.
Yeah.
at least definitely financially.
And what
It
we
looks
find out, though, is that, I don't know if we mentioned this, but Shelby was supposed to be getting married to Laura.
yes,
That was that's the big thing.
Like that week.
Yeah,
like
they were supposed to get married on that Friday, and Laura left like Thursday night, and was gone. That's the last time anybody saw her. And then she wound up dead. Anybody.
Yeah,
and she was dead.
Yeah, and then she was dead, and it's so. But just the line of questioning leads you to believe there's something more between the aunt and Shelby in general, because there's like, okay, you made it, you made a check out to him on this day for this amount of money, and then he withdrew some money from your account here on this day, and all kinds of stuff. So there's like an interesting relationship going on there, which we do get fleshed out a little bit more later on, very directly.
Yes.
Very directly. So of course, Lydecker is there as well, and you can already tell that Lydecker hates Shelby. And then I think Shelby hates Lydecker as well. There's several times in this movie where they almost like confront each other physically.
And the thing is and this is what's kind of weird about the Lydecker character is he points out so many times how much he disapproves of these other men that Laura's tried to be with, and specifically talks about their appearance, that they're more lean and younger men, though it doesn't seem like Lydecker. We don't know how romantically involved he feels he really needs to be with Laura. Like, you get this impression that they're like, he's obsessed with her, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like she's ever given him a reason to think that they.
Yeah, I was gonna get into that later on when we talked about the whole obsession thing. But I understand what you're saying in the sense that, like, we never really get a gist is if the relationship between Lydecker and Laura is romantic or not. I mean, I think from Lydecker's perspective, he wants it to be, but I think he has an inferiority complex.
Yeah.
Where he is probably insanely jealous of not only Shelby, but later on McPherson. And then there's this other like young painter character that we kind of never really see. We only hear mentioned about, who paints Laura, that famous Laura portrait that we see in the movie.
Yeah.
And so I think he feels jealous of them, and it probably also feels that they are inferior to Laura in general. And I think he probably also feels that he's the only, true person that can, measure up to Laura's level.
Yeah.
Or at least the level that he believes that she is at. Because a lot of what I find amazing about this movie is it's not so much who Laura is as a person or character, it's who these men believe her to be. It's in their idea. That's fascinating.
Their idea, mostly Lydecker. It's about his idea of her, and everybody's almost falling in love with false images of her. Directly, McPherson, of course, never meets her and falls in love with just
until later on in the movie.
Well, but initially he falls in love just with her picture and letters he reads. Like, he's already like falling in the movie. I mean, it might not seem so obvious the first time you watch it, but the more you watch it, the more you pick up on subtle things like that. But it's Lydecker spends this whole time just kind of like bringing down Shelby in this conversation until I think McPherson kind of gets fed up with it, and he's just like, "Well, I'm gonna leave now." There's great dialogue back and forth between all these characters. There's biting dialogue. They're going at each other through their words and stuff, and it's really sly, really well written. And I do want to mention this was also based on a 1943 novel titled Laura by Vera Kaspari. So it is based on a book, as many movies are, as we've come to learn over this long while. But after this, I believe he goes to dinner with Lydecker. McPherson does, and this is where we get the backstory of how Lydecker met Laura and how he kind of cultivated Laura to his own liking, obsessively, of course, because this man's obsessed like crazy. And we get this backstory of how
Laura approached him when he was at lunch one day at the Algonquin Hotel. I remember that.
I'm glad you remember that.
Yeah, yeah, and basically I think she works for like an ad company or something like that.
I think
she wants him. Yeah,
she's probably like freelancy at first, and
I think she works for like a company like in Mad Men, or it's like an ad company, because she wants him to endorse this pen that I guess her company has been like hired to promote or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like obviously he's a big to do in the publishing game or the newspaper game. So I guess an endorsement for him is basically like a golden stamp of approval.
Yeah.
To to get a product sold or to get anything done. And so she's bothering him, of course, in the middle of lunch, which honestly is probably not the best thing to do to anyone, let alone this guy who obviously likes his private time and likes to live by his own schedule. So she goes in to bother him, and he's just not having her. He's just like, is this the way you normally conduct your business? And she's like, no, I'm doing this by myself. No, my bosses don't know this. I haven't been asked to do this, but I'm doing it all by myself. And basically, he tells her off. But the whole time he's doing it, you see him playing around with his plate of food. And I just, it was mentioned in the special features where like he just like, he's fussing around with his food. And I thought that was interesting because like it looks like he's like taking stuff off of whatever he's eating, whether it be a steak or whatever. And it's like this guy likes everything to be such and such a way. He's probably an obsessive compulsive person. Having an OCD, type of disorder or whatnot. And he's doing that while she's talking to him, and he tells her off, and then she basically tells him off back to him, and he's probably not one who gets told off too many times.
No.
But he was actually impressed by her gumption, I guess.
Yeah.
Her willingness to panache, her willingness to go to go the extra mile for her job and whatnot. So he goes to visit her. He goes to visit her at the ad company, right? And when he walks in, he did the way he addresses people. He looks down upon them, and just like there's like this young boy working there, this young guy working there. He's like, "Boy, announce me." And it's like, "Announce me." It's like, "Oh, what are you, royalty?" But in his mind, I guess he thinks he's royalty, like he needs to be announced. And then so he walks over to her. The messenger boy, I guess, and he's like, and then she's like, "Please tell Mr. Lidecker that I'm busy right now," when she's clearly not busy. She just doesn't want to talk to him. And he's like, and of course, that's just a sly remark against him. But he's like, he's obviously not taking no for an answer, Lidecker. So he walks in the bullpen there, and decides that he is going to endorse this pen. And because like I said, he was impressed with her and whatnot. But now we get kind of a montage of just like them, like him like buying her dresses and taking her out to fancy dinners and all kinds of stuff. What is interesting is I didn't know this until I actually watched the movie. There are technically two cuts of this movie.
Yeah.
There's a theatrical cut and there's an extended cut. And the only difference between the two is that in the extended cut, there is a montage of her being of Laura being, being in the lavish society of, the upper crust or whatnot. And the reason why, it's only a few seconds long. It's a few second long montage. The reason why it was cut is because, the movie came out during World War II, and I guess the studio or producers or somebody didn't want it to look like, it didn't want it to be, how am I going to say this, Stephen? Didn't want it to look bad, and because people were, suffering during wartime.
I guess the tactfulness.
Yeah, I guess it just didn't look good. It wasn't a good image for the movie.
I don't know if it was about the movie. It was more about an outside, just being more, I guess, awareness, having an awareness of who the audience is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just the reason why I mention that is because there is a few extra scenes in this, in this montage of her meeting him and going through all of this that adds a little extra to kind of her shaping as a character, or her shaping from Lydecker's perspective, and it's also narrated by him as well, and we just hear about like all the different things and all the different places and all kind of stuff, and in a way it reminded me a lot of Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, because in the second half of Vertigo, without saying too much about that plot of that movie, is Jimmy Stewart's character becomes obsessed with this woman in the movie, and to the point where in the second half he transforms another woman to look like the woman he is obsessed with. Mm-hmm. So it's this idea of control and cultivating an image that you want. It's a very kind of dark and twisted, mind that it takes to manipulate someone to your liking. A lot of gaslighting probably going on. I wouldn't doubt that.
Yeah.
But what we also learn is, of course, what we've already said, is that Lydecker is insanely possessive and jealous of Laura's suitors. And what he also does is he actually uses his newspaper column to start rumors and badmouth all of the men who pursue her. And that takes a little extra planning. And that takes a little extra manipulative stuff. He's kind of like a really messed up Batman villain for a good part. But there's also one specific scene where he's actually like stalking her. Lydecker is, where he goes to her apartment as she's entertaining or being painted by the young painter that we never actually see. We only hear about him, and he's standing out in like the snow, and it's just like that extra obsessiveness to go that extra mile is really just adds an extra layer to the Lydecker character.
And the thing is the audience sees this, but if you think about from McPherson's point of view, he's just hearing the story being told from just one side.
Oh yeah, it sounds like he's creating quite a motive for himself, but against Lydecker.
Yeah.
We're getting this idea of, obsession and possession and control. And, so who would, when you're thinking about, murder or something like that, it's like, who's closest to the victim? Because those tend to be the people who are unfortunately involved the most. We always hear that, it's always like a family member or a close friend that is the one who commits the murder or something like that.
The thing is he almost in a sense, sabotages himself there because, he's trying so hard to let him know that he would never hurt her because he loves her so much. Which by the end of the movie, we get a literal image of his self-destruction.
Yes, we do.
That I'll hint there.
Yeah,
foreshadowing.
When we get there, yeah, foreshadowing. So yeah, we get all of that, and then we also get, and then I think this is where we get to, McPherson going back to the apartment.
Well, he has to go visit.
Oh no, he interviews the
maid.
Doesn't he the maid first?
Yeah.
Yes. The loyal maid who actually discovered the body.
Yeah. Yeah, so he goes to the apartment, and she's there, trying to still work. She's like, I'm paid for the week, I'm still working. So then he talks to her there, and, kind of gets the image of what she found, and of course it's difficult for her. And he kind of played, I think, doesn't Lydecker show up too? And Shelby?
Yeah.
Yeah, they always know when he's there.
They always show up together.
Yeah,
but we also learn that, I believe this is where we learn. My head could be getting all mixed up here. Is that there was a different, cheaper type of alcohol discovered amongst Laura's alcohol, amongst her alcohol, and what we also learn is that the housekeeper covered up some evidence as well. where she put the alcohol away, cleaned the cups, and put those away as well. And it's like, and he's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that because that's you. Are you aware that that's tampering with a crime scene?
Yeah.
Um,
There's
but-
also the thing with Shelby with this second key.
Yes.
That apparently
Yeah.
he kept that he had, and that he said he didn't know where it was. And then they went to they go to the apartment and
Yeah, it must be in the bedroom.
yeah, so he goes and doesn't find it. Or is that how it happened?
Yeah, well, they go to he goes. Yeah, it's the second key to the, I believe, her country home or like her cabin in the country, and he asks if who had it, and he's like, oh, I don't have it. It must be, I think it may be in the bedroom. The bedroom drawer or something like that, and they go in there to get it, and then McPherson basically catches him saying, yeah, you had that this whole time, right?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but I didn't want Lydecker to know I had it.
Yeah. He apparently got the key from the office that she works at.
Yes,
The second key to her apartment was at her office.
Right.
So that's how he got in.
Yeah, that's how we got into that apartment. But that other key that he also had was to, I believe, the cabin in the country.
Sure.
And he didn't want Lydecker to know that he already had it because it obviously makes him look bad. At one point, it may be after this, but we do get the backstory how Shelby met Laura, and I think that's fascinating as well because Shelby's an interesting character because Vincent Price plays him with almost a shy benevolence.
Yeah.
But he's not exactly a truthful person. And he's also he's in love with Laura, but he's also has this relationship with Laura's aunt, and that's how they're connected, is through her aunt. So it's I don't know if he's so much in love with Laura or he's just in love with the idea of being with someone of Laura's stature.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's more in lust with her. To be honest, I think it's more that
he's more in lust with her lifestyle.
Well,
than he is in love with her herself.
Well, I mean, he's in lust with his aunt, the aunt's. Well, we haven't revealed that, but he's more in lust with the aunt's lifestyle, and he just loves younger women. I mean, he wants a young, beautiful woman like Laura, and the aunt is an older woman, and that's the lifestyle. But that's what he wants. Is he's high maintenance.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm reading here where it says he's a kept man.
Yeah,
and I find that to be very interesting.
Yeah,
I almost think of the relationship between the aunt and Shelby similar to the relationship between in Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah,
between
the house.
William Holden and what's her name? Of course, I'm going to look that up. Gloria Swanson's character.
Yeah.
Almost like I'll pay for literally everything. I'll pay for
keep
everything
you around,
just to keep you around, to be a companion essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, they do have other words for that now, but but we won't go there, I guess. But just that relationship is very fascinating because I never felt like. What's interesting is that there's all of these men around Laura, circling Laura, connected to Laura, but I don't feel like any of them really had any romantic ties to her, other than McPherson later on in the movie.
Yeah,
they're just tied to her tangentially.
Yeah, they get something out of her only for their benefit.
Yes,
it's not the other way around. I mean, obviously, what's his name?
Lydecker,
definitely pumped her career up. Shelby, I don't know what the hell he did for her. I mean, he's kind of just an idiot.
I guess so. That's the one. That's what I find so interesting is that I'm trying to figure out what does what does Laura get out of the relationship with Shelby other than a friend? They seem more like friends than they would do like a fiance couple.
Well, the thing is you got to think she's a young woman, and maybe there is some truth to Liedecker's assessment of the other men that she sees, is that she likes tall, handsome men. Like that. That's it's not. We shouldn't sit here and say, hey, Laura's only going after perfect, intelligent people. She's dating. She's seeing other people. So, maybe, she just thought he was charming in some weird way. And
yeah, they do. I'll say this though, they do have a great when we. Well, I guess we're just talking about the flashback.
He pursued her.
Yeah, let's talk about the flashback. Yeah, like he was at one of her aunt's parties.
Yeah,
and Shelby. We're talking about Shelby, and he pursued her in a flirtatious, playful, nice manner, if you will. And they had a really good back and forth, really good, conversation, tete-a-tete. And it was just really, good. Like they got along well together. And then we find out that Shelby's kind of independently wealthy a little bit, but I think he's like a trust fund kid or something like that. Yeah.
But I think maybe what maybe interests her maybe somewhat is that, he's more, his interest, it seems like Shelby is very interested in her. When in her other relationship with Liedecker is all kind of like one-sided on the other way, where she's like always doing what Liedecker wants to do, even when it comes to getting things for her. Yeah,
literally in that party scene, in that party where he meets, where she meets Shelby, Liedecker's there as well, and he walks in, we'll talk about lines, he walks in, basically says, hey, I'm ready to go, these people bore me. And I'm like... Yeah,
one of the bitchiest lines. It's just such a bitch,
One, as an antisocial person myself who hates being around people, I kind of get it. But the other one, it's like, damn, that's...
It's really not coming from an introvert place. It's coming from a bitch place.
Yeah, it's not coming from I'm having social anxiety, I can't be around people, I'm nervous, I'm having a panic attack. He's like, no, these people are idiots, get me out of here.
Yeah. So she just gives into it because,
Well, it just seems like she's there she almost placates Liedecker. Yeah. Like she just goes along with him and stuff. Because I had this idea in my head when I was thinking about the movie the other night. Is like, does she pity him more than any other feeling? Pity him in the sense like she feels, bad for him, because we never see Liedecker with anyone else but her. He obviously probably alienates everyone he's around because he's
and she probably feels obligated to hang around because he's so good to her.
Yeah, because he's he's paid for all of these things. He's gotten her all kind. He's probably helped her career and all this kind of stuff. So she probably feels personally indebted to him.
Yeah.
So that's why she placates him in anything he does. Whether it's we will go to dinner at such and such a time, or we're gonna go to this place, and she'll always go with him. And it's when she stops going with him or goes with other people that's when he gets really insanely jealous.
Yeah.
Like there's like she won't show up for dinner one time, and then he'll go and find her wherever she is or something like that, and start stalking her. And I said earlier.
In particular, before her disappearance, it was she missed a date, and then she missed a second date, and then that's when she went missing, or she got killed. She got found.
Right.
So
what's most important about Shelby and Laura's relationship, or their whole story plotline together, is Shelby starts working at the ad agency with Laura, and
she gives him a job.
She gives him a job, and that's where he is introduced to Diane Redfern. Yet again, a character we never see in the movie. We only see her talked about.
Yeah,
and she's just a model for some of the ads. But here's the kicker: she physically resembles Laura.
Yes.
Because we see a picture of her.
Yeah.
And she looks like Laura. She has the same body type like Laura.
Yeah.
That's important.
Very important, Comes back later.
Kind of the key to this whole thing. But anywho, let's get back to McPherson and his pining. So McPherson, I've never seen a detective spend so much time in a crime scene before, and not actually be doing anything other than reading letters and drinking their alcohol.
Yeah, I didn't know you could just stay at the crime scene and live there.
It's like, I mean, the apartment's nice, though, so I don't blame him. But the whole movie, he is stern-faced, detective man, and he's, the way he's talking with everyone, the way he's dealing with everyone is very typical detective stern person. No cracks in his facade. So he's once again, he's reading Laura's letters, like obsessively reading her letters in her apartment, drinking her alcohol right next to her portrait, and let's just say this guy is kind of obsessed with her, and Lydecker even calls him out on it because once again, Lydecker just happens to be in that area.
Yeah.
Also, at one point, Lydecker demands that he wants some of his things returned to him.
Yeah.
His vase, the clock, which is important, and something else that I can't remember. But those two things. But the clock is the most important part of that of all that.
Yeah.
And he wants all those things returned to him. And at one point, he even tries to take the vase with him.
Yeah, McPherson shuts him down.
Part of the crime scene.
He's like, nothing's leaving.
Yeah, it's part of the crime scene.
Yeah.
So anywho, McPherson passes out after drinking and obsessing himself over Laura, and then he wakes up, and who happens to walk in the door? Laura herself.
Yes. The twist.
The twist, and here's the big twist. The first time I watched this movie, I had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because when you read the synopsis, it's just like, that he becomes obsessed with her. And even Lydecker, like I said, says I think he said I've never heard of a detective fall in love with a ghost before or something like that. And so Laura walks in and she's like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Obviously, she doesn't know what the heck's going on, and he's dumbfounded because he's like, "Am I dreaming? Am I seeing a ghost? What's going on here?" And basically she's like, "I'm gonna call the police if you don't leave." And he's like, you're Laura Hunt. And she's like, "Okay, I'm going to call the police." He's like, "No, I am the police. You're supposed to be." And then he explains to her, "You're supposed to be dead. There was a body found here, but didn't you read any of the newspapers? Didn't you hear it on the radio?" She's like, "No, I didn't get any newspapers where I was, and the radio wasn't working." She
goes on to explain that she went on a retreat to this country home.
Yeah, and she left her country home, and she called someone before she left. I think she called Lydecker or Shelby, somebody before she left, that she was leaving. Or maybe I got that wrong. But anywho, she explained that she left and went to her country home because she had to think. Basically, she had to get away.
I think he told Shelby because that's why Shelby knew the apartment was going to be empty.
Yes.
So that he could go in with the model.
Yes. And so what happened? But this is one of my favorite little touches of this movie is in this scene is where McPherson asks her, "What did you decide regarding marrying Shelby?" And she decided that she's not going to marry Shelby. And whenever you're watching this movie, look at that man's face. He smiles for a split second, and his shoulders relax. And it's the first time the whole movie where that facade breaks because he is in love with Laura. Granted, he doesn't even know anything about her other than what he's read in letters and all that kind of stuff. But he's so happy and giddy that she's not marrying Shelby that he smiles briefly.
And I think the first time I saw this movie, I had a hard time, because in a lot of movies of this era, you kind of almost have to have a suspension of disbelief when it comes to people falling in love. It's like people falling in love with barely knowing each other all the time, and that kind of feels like that happens in this movie with McPherson. But if you think about it, he spent a lot of time getting into her inner thoughts. Reading her diary, reading some of her most personal thoughts.
Yeah, her most personal letters.
And of course he knows what she looks like. She's a beautiful woman. and on top of his image of her and just reading about her thoughts through her own words, he fell in love with her.
Well, no, well, I kind of liken it, from a contemporary comparison. It's kind of like how, I mean, this is dark as hell. People do that a lot, especially in the internet world now, where in social media world, where everyone's, perception of themselves is put out there. You get a lot of people who obsess over like celebrities and perhaps not celebrities, and just that mentality of obsession I think is more commonplace now than it would be back in the 1940s, because there's just so much personal exposure to people now than ever before through the internet and stuff. And of course it leads to a lot of terrible negative things where you always hear about stalkers and harassment and all of these terrible things. But it's similar, but I think the two things are similar, where you, in your mind, you obsess over something or someone so much that you end up, becoming attached to it, romantically, or non-romantically, whatever. And that just seems to happen a lot more nowadays because of the world we live in. I just thought that was an interesting connection.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. But so he obviously we know now that he's happy that she's perhaps available. I don't know. He's kind of a selfish guy. There's no real good people in this movie other than perhaps Laura herself. But he basically tells her, okay, don't tell anybody you're here. Don't phone anybody. Don't let anybody in. None of that, because, we want, because he has more investigating to do, basically.
Yeah. Well, but before we move past that, what's really interesting about, you say the only good person in this movie is Laura herself. Is, we talked about at the beginning how different this was from typical noir. Like a lot of times one of the traits of noir is the femme fatale, yes, where a woman leads the man down this dark pathway to his ultimate demise. And in a sense, you could say that she has, but not in a dark, not in a cynical way. It wasn't her fault that these men became obsessed. It's their perception of her that is caused their doom.
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts as well. Is that they make her the femme fatale in their own minds, because of their perception of her. Which is not the reality of her, as we come to know in the second half of the movie, where she's not she's not the person that people think she is, or the person that people have made her up in their minds to be. And I find that fascinating, that all of the men in this movie are kind of the architectures of their own demise. Yeah. Because they create their own personal femme fatale within the Laura character. And also, it's not a love, square or anything like that, but it's a weird relationship between Lydecker, McPherson, Shelby, and Laura, because all of the men, I feel, are completely different. Yeah. They're all from different spectrums of, I guess you could say, personalities and characteristics and stuff. You have Lydecker, who's like this upper crust, wealthy, well-to-do society guy. You have McPherson, who's probably at the other end of the spectrum, who we learn is like this hardened detective who got in shootouts with, gangsters and stuff like that. And then you have Shelby, who's kind of in the middle somewhere, I think. Yeah. Because he's not quite wealthy, he's not quite poor, but he's not quite truly infatuated with Laura. He's more infatuated with these, where Laura can, help with his stature in society and the comfort of his own well-being and whatnot. But he's also friends with her and loyal to her as well. It's very interesting, the dynamic of all of these people around, and you have Laura kind of stuck in the middle of everything. But back to the plot. Basically, he tells her not to call anybody, don't say anything, and then he goes downstairs to the guy who's watching the place, or is monitoring the phones and whatnot. And of course, she makes a phone call not 2 minutes after he leaves. Yeah. And she calls Shelby and Shelby says, don't say anything. I'll meet you outside of your apartment, right away. And what happens is he does. They talk in the car, and we see that McPherson, kind of spies on them, and then he tails Shelby to, I believe, the cabin that she was staying at, which I guess is not that far away, although she says she had to take a train to get there, so I thought that was kind of odd, that it was both within driving distance, and you had to take a train to get to it. But alright, whatever. That's neither here nor there. So he gets there, and he catches them taking a gun off the mantle, the fireplace mantle, and he's like, so what are you doing? You putting it there? You taking it down? And then Shelby's like, you saw me walk in here. You know very well I didn't have it. So they have a back and forth, and this is where where Shelby says that about his relationship with Diane Redfern, and how Diane Redfern was like madly in love with him and was like obsessive about him. Whether that's true or not, who really knows?
Yeah.
So, and that's where you get what you said before, is that that he knew the apartment was going to be empty, so he invited Diane Redfern over, and this is where we get the reveal that it was actually Diane Redfern that got shot, and not Laura, and he was actually in the apartment. And apparently, like, Diane was also wearing her clothes as well. I found that to be kind of odd.
Well, he talked about how they looked similar. So it's like,
But the fact that she was wearing Laura's clothes, I thought was a little odd to me. But I also think that Shelby was probably having a relationship with Diane Redfern, and it wasn't what he was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone said it in the special features where I think like he was kind of lying about that, and I'm like, where he said that he was going over there, he invited her over to try to convince her not to be obsessed with him or some nonsense like that. And I'm like, no, probably not.
Yeah, I
he
feel
was just taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah, I think honestly, I feel like by the end of this movie, though we don't see it, he should have been arrested too.
At least for accessory.
I mean, goddamn, he some woman died and he kind of covered it up for a while.
Yeah, he didn't call the police.
Yeah.
He didn't call an ambulance. All he said he did was heard the gunshot from the other room, came in, saw the body there, and like checked to see if her heart was still beating or something, to see if she was still alive. And McPherson asked him, like, why didn't you call anybody? He's like, I was like too scared, too nervous, too frozen in fear, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess it's a little weak. I don't think it'll hold up in court, but okay.
Unfortunately, he's not the main part of the story. So,
but he technically didn't commit the murder, even though he was there when it happened. So right now, so the next day, McPherson goes over to Laura's apartment, and he's gonna like make her breakfast yet again, just kind of inviting himself over and literally putting himself into her life without her really wanting him to be there or asking him to be there. Yet again, these men seem to encroach themselves on Laura's life, even though she doesn't ask for it or want it. And I just find that to be very interesting. So he goes there, and he's gonna make her breakfast, and then she says, I'll do it. And then the maid walks in and sees that Laura's still alive, and she almost passes out.
Yeah.
That poor lady. And then Laura like puts her to work. She's like, why don't you make us some bacon and eggs? And it's like, this lady's like shaking in fear. What are you talking about?
Nothing about
maybe give her the day off.
Better to do some work to forget about your problems.
I guess. Maybe give her a day off or something. But anyhow, but then he invites, McPherson invites Waldo over, Lydecker, because he wants to see what his reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
And of course he walks in, and he sees Laura, and he passes out. Now, initially, when you're watching the movie, I thought, hey, he passed out because, hey, he thought she was dead. But we learned that's probably not true. That's not why he passed out.
Why not?
Well, it is true and it's not true, but for different reasons.
Well, yeah, he thought he knew he killed somebody. He assumed he killed Laura.
Yeah, yeah. The big reveal here is that he's the one.
Sorry, he's the one
who kill Diane Redford thinking it was Laura. But when you're watching this movie for the first time and you don't know that, you're thinking that he's passing out because he thought Laura was dead and now she's alive. But if you rewatch the movie, now you know he passes out because he thought he killed Laura and she's not dead. So now he's in some deep crap.
Who the fuck did I kill?
Yeah, what happened? Where was I and who were you? And so he passes out. They wake him up. They give him some pills. I don't know what those pills were. And basically, and then I think Shelby comes over as well because he's always around, I guess. And then Lydecker wakes up, walks from the bedroom over, and he's like, so are you gonna like arrest him now? You look good in bracelets. He's always going at Shelby, like really digging into him.
And this is when we get the whole scene with the aunt too, where the aunt basically straight up says, just give me Shelby.
Yeah, the part. Yeah, I was getting to that, where basically Lydecker says like, hey, we're gonna throw this party because it's your welcome home party, you're back. And so everybody comes over, but what I also want to mention, there's a lot of animosity now there's more animosity now between McPherson, Lydecker, and Shelby than I think there ever was before. Because now McPherson has kind of thrown his hat into the ring as a possible
He's got a more personal stake in it now.
Yeah. First of all, as an objective detective, this man's beyond compromised at this point.
Yeah.
He's completely compromised.
Well, this is what makes this a film noir.
Yeah. Great characters doing amoral things.
Yeah.
So they throw this big lavish party, and Laura's like, I think she's getting ready or she's in the doing something, and then first of all, this aunt is cold. She doesn't talk much in this movie, but this is a cold-blooded aunt.
Yeah.
And I should probably get her name because we're just calling her the aunt. She's Aunt what's her name? Anne Treadwell. So Auntie Anne, I guess. And basically, she decides that she is going to. She decides that she tells her that she's not the right person for Shelby, because what we also learn is that Shelby and I guess her made up, and that she is going to now marry Shelby.
Yeah.
So and of course McPherson's not happy about that. So he decides that he is going. So she tells him that, Shelby and I are the same type of wrong person, so that's why we're made for one another.
Yeah.
You and him are not the right for one another. And she basically says that if you weren't she basically tells her if you, it wouldn't be surprised if they told me I was the one that killed you, essentially. And it's like, wow. Wow.
Well, she talks about how Shelby has the ability to kill somebody, but she knew it wasn't him.
Right.
But that he has the capability, and she knows that they're the same because she's also capable of doing it.
Yeah, she basically said she wanted to kill Laura so that she and Shelby could be together.
Yeah. She
Which is pretty dark for an aunt to tell a niece.
Yeah.
Or for really anyone to tell anyone.
Yeah.
It seems pretty messed up. So McPherson gets a phone call at this party, and he's like, yeah, I'm just about to make my arrest now. And he arrests Laura, of all people. And he takes her in.
It's a good strategy, but it's almost like he just wanted to get her out of there for himself.
Not only get her out of it, but he wanted to get her alone with himself.
Yeah.
For himself. Which is pretty obvious when you get to the interrogation scene. And I use that term loosely because it's kind of a fake interrogation. He even admits, I didn't even, book you when you came in. Did you not notice that?
Now, this is the scene where you get that smirk that you mentioned earlier.
You get the second one. Yeah, there was a little one in that other scene where he says that she wasn't gonna where she says she wasn't gonna marry Shelby, and then there's a bigger one.
Okay,
where
I didn't see this first one. I noticed the second one.
Yeah. I noticed them both, where his shoulders literally relax, and he's like, oh, good. Where he asks her, do you love Shelby? And she says no. And he's like, oh, good. And he's like, his shoulders slump down, and he's like, and he smiles. And it's like, yeah, this guy's so so like invested in this personally that he couldn't he probably should have been taken off this case. Essentially,
Well, there's obviously no superiors. he's
yeah.
the
I guess he's the
it's
head.
him and
he's
this
the-
guy
he's the
that
head
helps
guy.
him watch the place. That's the only people I see.
Yeah, there's nobody. I guess he's the end all be all of this case. So he, so yeah, he knows that she's not the one who did it, but and all the questions he asks her are all like personal like questions between her relationships with like Lydecker and Shelby, and they're not really pertaining to the actual murder itself. Well, other than the question where why did your radio the radio was fixed, why did you tell me it wasn't fixed or something like that? And he's like, and she's like, well, I told the local handyman to fix it before I left, and I left a key under the rock, under a rock outside or something like that. And it's like, okay, and he's like, yeah, you wouldn't make up a lie that could be so easily checked.
Yeah, he asked her questions about like why she didn't they couldn't find her when they went to her country place because and then she says, oh, I went for a long walk, and there's no there's no phone where I'm in my so she basically had an alibi for everything of why they couldn't find her initially.
Yeah, she had answers, but we know. I mean, at this point we don't know, but she's not the killer. She's not the killer, and he knows that she's not the killer. He, like we said, he wanted her basically all to himself, and so. And after this, I believe she goes back.
Well, they go back to the apartment.
Yes.
And this is where he wants to check on... Well, they go to Lydecker's first. That's what they do. They go sneak into Lydecker's place, don't they? Because they want to check out...
He does.
Yeah, he does.
He lets her go, and he goes over to Lydecker's place, and that's where he looks at the clock that's there. That's the identical one that Laura has.
Yeah.
And he's trying to open it up and can't open it up, so he like kicks it open. He notices that there's like this hidden compartment in it, and he's like, okay, if there's a hidden compartment in this one, there's got to be a hidden compartment in the other one.
Yeah.
So then he goes to Laura's apartment.
Yeah.
And that's where I believe.
Well, they find the gun. They find the shotgun.
Well, not only that, but McPherson returns to Laura's apartment, and Lydecker is there, and he's there, and basically. He also comments again about the closeness between McPherson and Laura as well. And he also, what is interesting is I think Laura and him are having a conversation, and she tells him, I think, that she actually like is falling for McPherson or something like that. And he's trying to convince her out of it. Lydecker is. Yeah. And that's when McPherson shows up in the middle of kind of that thing that's going on. But Lydecker leaves because he says he's going to be doing a radio broadcast about some story about like two lovers and love or something like that. And when he leaves, that's when McPherson checks the clock and he's like, there's got to be a combination or a way to open this. He opens it up, and inside there is a shotgun. And this is the shotgun that killed Diane Redfern. And he checks it, and of course there's two empty shells in it, so they used both barrels. And he's like playing out the scene where, okay, he must have heard Shelby in the other room, so he went out in the hallway, he hid out in the hallway, and then after Shelby left, he came back in and put the gun in this clock. And he believes it to be Lydecker. Yeah, so he puts it back. And so he puts it back, and he goes downstairs. And as he's leaving, they like kiss for the first time. Interesting time to
he tells her to stay in the apartment, don't let anybody in.
Yeah, lock all the doors. Yeah, don't let anyone in. And goes downstairs to the guy who's I guess has the worst job in the world.
The second cop in this movie.
Yeah, I guess this dude's just hanging out.
Cop number 2,
just hanging out. Just hanging out.
Well, he's keeping watch on the crime scene.
I guess, but it's like the woman's alive. Whatever. Anywho, he's just there, and he's like, and I believe McPherson asks him, did you see Lydecker come out? He's like, no, I haven't seen him at all. And he's like, he left 5 minutes ago. He should have been gone by now. So that's when McPherson's like, oh, he probably never left. And what we learn is that he was like hit. There's another entrance into the apartment that looks like a bathroom that connects to the hallway.
There's like a side entrance or something.
Yeah, there's like a second entrance, which I guess wasn't locked. I don't know. And he walks in with that, takes the gun out of the clock, puts in new bullets, and then
at the same time, Laura's listening to the radio
broadcast, which is him,
which is a pre-recorded one.
Which is a pre-recorded.
He tried to give himself an alibi. Tried to give himself an alibi by saying, "Hey, I'm on here on this radio thing," but really it's pre-recorded, so he nobody would suspect him.
Nobody would suspect. So he's like he walks in and he comes behind her, and of course he's got to say something because it's a movie, and they struggle, and then a shot rings out. But meanwhile, of course, the police have already come up the stairs. They're trying to get in. McPherson goes in the other door that Lydecker went into. Then comes in the apartment. Laura's running towards McPherson, and Lydecker's running towards her, and basically I think
one of the other cops shoots
police
him.
Shoots him, and then he gets off one final shot, and that final shot doesn't hit anyone, but it does hit the clock.
Yeah.
Someone's time has run out.
Yeah, someone's time's run out. The foreshadowing there.
That Steven mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Very dramatic ending. It's very well put together. Very well edited. From the point of when he's about to shoot her initially, and she hits his gun up into the air, and then the cops run in. They can't get through the door. McPherson knocks down the door, and then comes in and just very quickly edited, in a tasteful way. Bam, yes. Bam, and then
bam, bam, and then But of course, I believe what he said when he initially went, to shoot her is if I can't have you, no one will.
Yeah.
That line or that idea that's been used in countless movies ever since.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole clock getting shot thing. Director Carl Franklin said it in the special feature that's coincidentally titled "Obsession," is that it's also a symbol of his self-destruction.
Yeah. Because
of his control of Laura. And he basically, his idea was that, since he has that clock and he gave her that clock, that it's a symbol of him having almost a physical representation of his control over her, because they have that thing connecting them.
Yeah.
And then now that thing is actually severed because, of his self-destruction. And then in the final scene, the final shot of the movie, I believe, is that clock destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie ends.
Yeah, his last, Lydecker's last words is I think it's I love you, Laura.
Yeah, it's goodbye, Laura, goodbye, my love.
Yeah, yeah. And he dies, and that's it. Yeah, the last shot's on the clock.
And that's the end. That's the end of Laura.
That's Laura.
That's Otto Preminger's Laura, 1944. And yeah, that's my favorite film noir of all time.
Top shelf.
Top shelf. Where it's typically on the top of many people's favorite film noirs or top 10 film noir lists of all time. I put it up there with Out of the Past and In a Lonely Place, which is other two films that we've talked about at some point during our podcast.
Yep.
There are other really famous film noirs The Big Heat,
Sunset Boulevard.
Sunset Boulevard, I consider a film noir. The Maltese Falcon, Double Indemnity. The list of classic film noirs go on. And we've, even Gilda is a film noir, which we also went over a lot of film noirs throughout this.
Yeah, we also, of course, talked about Night of the Hunter, which is kind of...
Yeah, which is also a film noir. Damn.
Yeah. we
covered them.
Yeah, we really we have a...
We've leaned heavy to film noir.
Yeah, we might be a little biased. But yeah, this is
just
definitely one of my top ones.
Yeah, I group it's at the top, and then I think it's like Out of the Past, In a Lonely Place, is up there, like I said.
And of course, there's some neo noirs that are really high up there too. Of course, we talked about L.A. Confidential,
which we did last time.
yeah,
Yes, we did.
And stuff like Chinatown. I would even say as recent as something like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is very good.
That's a great noir. That's a great neo noir.
Even The Nice Guys is really good by Shane Black also.
Yeah.
But I think
it's a detective story. You can kind of.
But Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is very much going for that noir.
Yeah, it does it purposely.
Double stories that are intertwined, kind of thing.
Yeah, like red herrings. There's narration.
Yeah.
There's murder.
It almost is kind of self-aware of its film noir aspect in that movie. But yeah, I mean, it is our favorite genre, both of our favorite genres, and when it gets around to this time of the year, it's always fun to be able to zero in on film noir. So yeah, and so that brings us to what we're going to do next week. Now, before we get into this, and I'm sure Andrew's sort of brainstorming here because he never really gets prepared for this.
Yeah, that is very true.
I am going to preface that this next episode in 2 weeks will probably be our last of the year. It is the holidays, and also I am in the midst of moving, so that I can have time to set up my new setup at the new place. We probably won't have a new episode until beginning of next year sometime. I'm sorry, after the next episode. We will have one more episode.
Right.
2 weeks from now will be our last episode of the year, and then we won't have another episode maybe for a month, so that I can get myself situated. So
yeah, moving stuff. Kind of stuff.
Yeah. So without further ado, I don't know if Andrew's ready.
Man, I'll be honest, I'm not quite ready, but I've got things a cooking.
So usually we would do maybe a holiday movie. It's not necessarily, we don't have to, but it's really up to Andrew. It's his turn. So does he have something?
I kind of do. I kind of want to. I know. I've got the Hollywood movie, the holiday movie that I want to talk about, but it gets talked about incessantly.
I'm gonna guess It's a Wonderful Life.
That's the one I want to do.
We did it. The thing is we did a shop around the corner last year, which is also Jimmy Stewart. So we might want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of.
We could do Elf.
I was actually looking at Elf. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, Jon Favreau, man. I mean, it's people like that movie.
Yeah, you want to do Elf?
We can if you want.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
why not?
We've been doing some older movies.
Yeah, just an excuse to rewatch Elf. There we go.
Yeah, it's something that I have to watch every year anyway. So
yeah, it's Will Ferrell kind of in his prime before he just kept doing the same old stuff over.
Well,
and
over. Yeah, and this is Jon Favreau near the beginning. I think he did.
It gives us a chance to talk about Favreau's earlier work, I would say.
Like Zathura.
No one talks about his movie Made. His movie Made is a really great film.
Yeah,
it's only available on DVD.
Yeah, Zathura, I think, was one of his first movies also. Then he did Cowboys and Aliens, which wasn't great.
Yeah, it's like one of the few times Harrison Ford showed up to Comic-Con that wasn't Star Wars.
Yeah.
Chef is great.
Chef is maybe his best.
And
of course he's done 2 Iron Man movies, and
yeah, of course.
Of
course.
He's went on to do these Lion King and these remakes of these.
Yeah, I really like his early stuff. Made is a movie that no one talks about because everyone thinks that he directed the movie Swingers, and he didn't.
No, he acted
Nobody
in that
knows
movie.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just in that movie, but he's just so famous for being in it. People think he directed. That was a Doug Liman movie.
Doug Liman
directed that movie. He wrote that movie, but he wasn't in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about Elf. Why not?
Yeah.
something lighter to end the
You
year.
were trying to get all crazy with it, and then
I'm trying to go all
just
meta. Like, let's do Fargo. Let's do The Hateful Eight.
You were trying to be clever. Well, you know what? You should have been prepared if you wanted to be clever.
Oh, so
see what happens. Now we have to fall back on mainstream entertainment.
Yeah, all this is gonna get cut anyway, so we can. I guess.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see when the final product comes.
Well, that's it for this episode. Where can we find you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Kevzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Kevzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me on Instagram at Cinema Discovery Project, or on Letterboxd at Cinema Discovery. You can find the audio for this podcast on Podbean and Apple Podcasts. Thank you once again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.